Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat Five segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show.
Hey, this is Thom Sonny Green from Alt J, and I am Ben's guest this week on Big Fat Five.
What is up? Welcome back to Big Fat Five, a podcast financially supported by Big Fat Snare Drum. This week's guest is Thom from the band Alt J. He's one of the most creative drummers out there today, and the band as a whole are just legends. It was truly an honor talking to him, and if you don't know Alt J, they're a blend of folk, indie, electronica, and rock, and they're really their own genre. So thank you, Thom, for taking the time, and I hope you enjoy the 5 records that helped shape Thom into the drummer he is today. He truly is a singular player, and it's conversations like this that made me want to switch to this format. So, cheers.
Tabs on your tongue. I heard the shepherds, I heard the sheep sleep. Now I'm the only one. Broken sweethearts.
Can you talk about your approach to the sounds of your drums, which is a huge part of your ability to be recognized?
Yeah. I come from, in terms of sound, like sonically, well, first off, our producer we've worked with for all of our albums, Charlie Andrew, he's a drummer himself. He's a very good drummer. And so it helps that there's basically two drummers working together, and that helps a lot. And he's very experimental in his recording, and he likes to push things and try anything out. So when it comes to recording, we try a lot of unorthodox techniques and experimentations with microphones, and also our engineer Matt, he engineered this album. He's an incredible engineer and creative person. Like he came out with some really interesting stuff for recording, and also, like, in terms of what I'm hitting, like I'm not just hitting drums, like again, like there's all kinds of things which to add to that kind of, because there's, you got the frequency range, and you want to kind of like not fill it up, but like you want to kind of think about, like, well, because I don't use cymbals, so there's a whole like range there that is empty for me, and I don't want to just fill it up with cymbals. I think cymbals work for a lot of people, but for us, I think I make use of the minimal kind of sound that we have by using different forms of percussion. Well, it might be a biscuit tin, it might be a drum case or a cardboard box on a wall. But I do use samples. So I produce music in Ableton. Like when we're recording, I'm putting everything into Ableton so that we're kind of making demos. And it's a really great way to write because you can see everything, which helps. I think it helps Joe quite a bit. He's very visual, and so you can see the track, and you're able to kind of go in and be like, well, we need to take that out, move that, whatever it is. And it's just a nice way to kind of illustrate what we're recording. And then I can also then put in whatever I like. So samples or recordings that I'm making in the studio. When I'm recording, it's very DIY, but I quite like that. I think it's nice that like I can do that. And then when we're recording fully with Charlie, we've got what we need, like, professionally. Like, I wouldn't be able to record an album myself. It would sound horrendous. So we need to have, it's nice to have both though, because sometimes my recordings have got a lot of character because I don't know what I'm doing. That combination of like the DIY lo-fi with the very high professional kind of stuff from Charlie's, that mix. And I mean, there's no kind of like complete approach. Like it does vary a lot. It really depends on the tracks sometimes, you know. Sometimes it's more traditional and I'm using less and I need to do less. But sometimes I'm using the drums and percussion as a hook, maybe, like, you know. And I'm aware that the sound, the drum sound, definitely is a key element. Like, I think the three of us have always understood that there's a balance. It's not, there's no hierarchy in terms of what we're doing. Like, you know, when we're playing live, I play right at the front with Joe and Gus.
Mm-hmm.
I think visually it's a good thing that people can kind of, we noticed early on that I think people like to watch me play, or they like to watch drummers play. So that's why I'm at the front. It's a nice thing to look at, and it kind of adds an element to the live show. So
Sure.
yeah.
Well, and I watched an interview of you talking about creating the song Philadelphia from the new record, The Dream, and how you weren't happy with a lot of your initial ideas. So when you're writing drum parts, what is the criteria you have for judging them?
That's a good question. Well, I can feel it. Honestly, it's a very kind of instinctual thing. I've grown up feeling I'm a very rhythmic person, and I'm very, the way that I exist day to day is within a rhythm of some kind, and psychologically, I like rhythm. I like order a lot. Like, I really love to, things I do in my spare time, not related to music. I like a lot of like problem solving, like whatever that is. So like, I like, at the moment I've gotten really into like computing and making like my own little computers and programming and that kind of thing. And I love it. I get so much satisfaction from following instructions through to the end and succeeding. And the harder it is, the better, because it might take me weeks or months to get a simple thing done, but I've done it. I think it's part of the, you know, the rhythm and the drums and the music is the same thing. It's the same, feels like it's the same part of my brain. And so, yeah, I can't remember what the original question was now. Sorry.
Well, just like, how do you judge your parts? You know, like, are you aware of like, it's not doing this for me, and I have this kind of checklist of what it needs to be for the song?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's the initial feeling. Like, I can feel if it's standard and if it's an average. I mean, sometimes it needs to be average. Like, you know, like, I'm aware that a lot of the time I try to remind myself that a lot of my job is to be the subconscious kind of foundation for things. And I'm not it's not the lead a lot of the time, and I need to just do what I need to do. But I can still feel when it's lacking something. And then I kind of think, well, a lot of the time I think, who my favorite people, who my favorite drummers, like what were some of my favorite beats, like how do you think they approached what they did then? Like, instead of like just trying to think outside the box in the moment, like in the studio, just trying my best to kind of be free and not put any restrictions on myself physically. It's a hard thing to do sometimes. Like, I think playing for a little bit, I get into the mode, and then I can kind of like improvise and experiment. But it's a balance of doing that, like playing a lot and entertaining myself, but also not going completely off the wall and it being just chaos. It needs to make sense within the language of the track. Like, each voice needs to be able to talk to each other, and synchronize. And it can be frustrating sometimes when I'm not feeling it, and that's what was happening on Philadelphia. It's happened various times in our career, like where the track has just been like, this is just lacking. And Philadelphia in particular, it just felt very standard, and I knew that there was more potential to it, and I just had to sit with it, and I approached it through Ableton. So I kind of removed all of the drums and then started messing with samples. And a lot of the time then you can think, well, there's the rhythm there that I didn't think of. And then I play it live, or I keep an element of the electronic under it or whatever. So yeah, or and sometimes I can see in my mind how a track looks too, and I like to kind of help it along in a certain direction, and it becomes clearer in my mind, like the kind of shape of it, and yeah.
One of my favorite series to watch when I'm kind of just want to feel creative but don't want to do anything specific myself is to watch the series Against the Clock. And you actually did an edition of that, which if people don't know, it's basically you get 10 minutes and it's just a fly on the wall of someone being creative. How was that experience for you? Was that nerve-wracking? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was very nerve-wracking. I that was a few years ago as well, and I was quite I was very like keen to impress and like really kind of eager to like I still produce music now, but I at that period I was like I really wanted to pursue it and be like one of those guys, and like I used to DJ a lot, and like I wanted to like really pursue that, and Fact, I think it's Fact magazine, um huge fan of. I still am. Like I think I was really in what everything they were doing. I followed a lot of their artists, and so it was a big deal. And they came over to my flat. I think it was in the summer, and I was so hot and I just sweating, and it's so much harder when the cameras are on you. And
I can't even imagine that. Yeah.
yeah, and creativity comes. You can't just like force it. So it for me, often when I'm working on electronic stuff on my laptop, whatever, it's after an hour or so when I start to like be like, oh, this is going somewhere. This is good. It takes me I have to warm up. And so going in cold, it was challenging. It was very challenging. And I think I look back on it and think I would do things differently, which is pointless because I can't change it. And I'm proud of it. But it was fun. I do like I like a challenge too. Like it's nice to sometimes have like parameters, Alt J, like we in our writing, like we like to have restraints sometimes and parameters and take things away so that you're kind of made to like really work at something as opposed to making things just easier. It was fun.
Well, you should be proud of it. I thought the end result was rad. It was really unique. It was very Thom, and I think the reason why I watch it is less. It's almost never about what they create. It's more of like I just want to see their workflow, which I think is what people take from it mostly.
Yeah,
because they don't have a lot of like drummer producers on there, and so it was fun to see like, well, how would he approach just writing from scratch? And I do something similar than that, or that's something I don't do, and
right.
It was really fun to watch. So,
well, that's cool. I kind of agree. Actually, like I like a lot of like. I like a lot of stand-up comedy or like comedy in general, and like I really like hearing comedians talking about comedy. Like I guess it's a similar thing. But the end, like there are comedians who their stand-up I don't think is good. I wouldn't pay to see them, but I could listen to them talking in podcasts all day, like about their craft, and I really like doing that. So yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from with that.
All right, well, let's just get into your top 5. So the album, number 1 is Around the Fur. The release year is 1997. The artist is Deftones. The song choice is My Own Summer, with the fill heard around the world. And the drummer is Abe Cunningham. Yeah, so why'd this guy make the list?
Oh, wow, it's so good. I mean, it was the first beat that I heard or was actually shown to me that I was like, oh wow, there's character in that, and you can hear the person behind it, the artistry in it, and it's so simple. Well, there's beauty in the simplicity. And I strive for that all the time, like with whatever I do. Like I love painting and painters, and the same thing. Like I really love like direct messages that are kind of palpable, and this beat for me does that. It was shown to me by a friend of mine, a guy called Christian Scott, who's a drummer. He's a couple of years older than me, and we went to the same high school together. And we made friends because we used to go to church together. I stopped going to church years ago, but we were there as kids. And because, our parents went, and we made friends there. And we kind of met up a few times when I was a teenager to talk about drums. And he had a drum kit, and his bedroom should be in a museum now. It was insane. Like, he had the most incredible drum kit, and floor to ceiling, and the ceiling was covered in posters of bands and band memorabilia. And he was like 14 at the time. Just the coolest person I've ever met, and an incredible drummer. And he modified his drums so that they were like dead and like really kind of just close and tight so that it wouldn't disturb the neighbors. And he showed me this beat on a mixtape that he made me, and he taught me how to play it. It's very easy to do now, but that off beat, the kick on the off, that was the first thing that I learned, that was like, do things a little bit differently. Like, don't do it on where you expect it. Do it later. And that was the first influence. And I played it. But I mean, the whole track too. I mean, that rack tom snare intro, the simplicity in that, and the way it's recorded, the reverb on it, the snare drum. Every time he hits it, there's a slightly different sound to it. Like the reverb hits just resonates slightly different, and it cuts all the way through. And I've always loved that about those drums. Every album, the drums just sing through everything. And so, yeah, and the fills as well. I know the beat like by memory. Like, I could run through it in my mind, the whole track. Each fill is it says so much to me. And I think at the time when I was a kid, it just really sat well with me, and it encouraged me to do all kinds of things. But the main point was that it's simple, effective, it has so much authority, and there's so much confidence in it, because it's not all over the place. I think he's one of the best drummers, ever, in my opinion, because of his simplicity and his grooves too. But I love the Deftones. Like, growing up, right, it's such an influence on me. Like, all their albums, there's loads of really iconic beats on that album. Another track, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's just it comes in with like, I think it's 3 or 4 kick drums. It's just so heavy. I learned how to play that too. A few years ago, I interviewed him for a magazine. This magazine reached out to me and asked if you could interview any drummer, who would it be? And I said Abe Cunningham, and they set it up because they were playing in London.
Wow.
And I met him and interviewed him, and he was such a sweet guy, like really, really nice, very accommodating, like hospitable. Like, I was really nervous, and I'd had questions written. Yeah, I had questions written that I didn't ask. Like, I just forgot them all, and we ended up just having a conversation. It was very surreal for me. Like, it was, like having such an influence, being a teenager, things that you love, you really, really love. And like, things that really kind of give you a lot of comfort just last. And so he had a huge impact on me. And so meeting him, I was very, very humbled. And then seeing him play, I was behind him on stage. He hits unbelievably hard.
Yeah.
Smashes the shit out of the drums, almost like he couldn't hit any harder. But the power and the groove that he has, like, he sits back on it. It just, I love that so much. I try to be like him as much as I can. I really respect that kind of sitting back as much as possible, letting it breathe, and just really like having control over the audience, like with your rhythm. It's a real skill, and yeah, he's amazing.
Well, speaking of snare drums, can you talk a little bit about your snare choice?
Yeah, I use a 10, I think it's 10 inch. by 5.5, I think. A Thom, I don't know the model. I'm like the least drummer's drummer. Like I don't know the names of anything.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Some guys like I respect it. They know the ins and outs. I don't really know, but I got this snare drum. I've had variations of it since, but I got it when I was I think about 17. I went to a drum store in Leeds. My favorite drum store. I used to, when I had enough money, I'd go and get the train to this drum store. It's called Shearer's in Leeds, just to buy sticks. And I'd saved enough money for a splash cymbal.
Mm.
And I got there and they had this snare drum on sale. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to take the snare drum instead.
That's a good choice.
Yeah. And I remember it's just so tight. It was so tight and it just cut through everything. And I took it home and I was in a band at that time and I set it up for band practice. And I remember just like our guitarist, Thom, playing something and like, I waited and then I just came in and everyone just kind of started laughing because it was just it was so comically like, it was good. It was so good. It just like made so much sense. It was like, this is so tight. It just cracked through everything. And since then, that's all I've used. Like, and now I forget that it's quite a novelty. And but live now, like I want to make sure that people can hear it, and like, it's a real distinct thing for me. And like, I make sure that I regularly like listen to. During sound checks, I'll like listen to the playback in the front of house, and just because I want to hear it, and I like to have it tuned quite high. Yeah, it's part of my sound, part of the band's sound now, I think. Yeah, I wouldn't change it.
I mean, when you just close your eyes and play a drum that's that small and tune that tight, it is so fun to play because you can just barely tap it and it gives it right back to you. Yeah, I love it. I have a little 13 that I tune up, and even just that 1-inch difference is like, oh my God, I'm way better today.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I use ghost notes a lot. And actually, the more I play, the more I like using ghost notes. It's great for that because it really picks up everything. It's ideal for what we do because a lot of it is reserved and kind of quiet and a little bit like some of it's quite folky but you can just hear everything.
Super sensitive.
Yeah, I actually do in the recording process. I do use various snare drums, but
yeah, I mean, speaking of Philadelphia, that song is a little more of a deeper tone too. So it's not the only one you use, but all right. So I was really excited about this one. Number 2, the album is, and this record was huge for me as well. The Mark, Thom, and Travis Show, release year's 2000. The artist is Blink 182. Song choice is Aliens Exist. Another great intro on the drums, and the drummer is of course Travis Barker. So let's just go ahead and play a little bit of that song as well, and then we can talk about it. Oh my God, that brings me back. I'm so happy now.
So good. So nostalgic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so fast and skillful and creative. I mean, the speed on it and the vitality, like it just, I think at that time, I can't remember how old I was, maybe 15. that whole album I listened to just relentlessly. Like I thought it was very funny as well. Like Mark and Thom are very, very funny on stage. And the fact you don't hear Travis speak once either. I think the fact that it's before, like, you know, everyone had, before internet and phones, before cell phones, or well, before smartphones. And so you didn't have access to endless information. So I didn't even know what he really looked like, or like what he was like as a person. And so listening to that, that's all I had. And you know, you kind of dream up all of that other stuff, and you think, I wonder what he does look like. I wonder what he's like. Like, I wonder how he came up with those beats. Like, I love the fact he hasn't said a word. Like, it's very mysterious, but he's just so skillful, and he's just working really, really hard, like throughout that whole album, to really, like, I love how kind of he's showing off a lot as well. And yeah, I mean, the speed in the fills, like I tried to emulate that, like when I was growing up, tried to learn how that was done. Still don't quite know how. Like I learned by just rolling the sticks on the drum. Like, I don't know what you call it, but just having it bounce, and learning how to control that. I don't know if that's what he did, but that's what it taught me, and I kind of implemented that into my own playing in the bands that I was in at the time, and yeah, I'm very grateful I learned a lot of speed, I think, from him, and stick control. Yeah, I mean, he's a machine. Like, I think when I did get into like YouTube a little bit later, they actually recorded, they made an album, and they streamed a lot of it via a webcam during the process, and they would upload video blogs now and again of the process. And Travis had this like practice area set up, and he would just do rudiments, and it just unbelievably tight rudiments, like very, very skillful. I think he used to be in a marching band.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I was just obsessed. I was obsessed with Blink-182. Like at that time, my girlfriend was really into Blink-182, and it was just like, it was so into it. And the fact that we were like really American to me as well, which like
just Southern California. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've always been a little bit obsessed with that, like California, kind of that accent, like the sun, like, you know, in my mind, like they wore like backward baseball caps, and like, you know, all of that stuff. And it was super funny. And I just really wanted to be like him at that time. And his drum kits were like something else. Like, I think Orange County, like, I didn't quite know what Orange County was, but his like he had a transparent orange kit at one point. I was just into all of it. And I mean, you can hear on that, like, I don't know if I could play like that now. Like if I tried, like that speed, the precision, and again the sound of the drums, like a snare drum it just cracks. It cracks right through. I love it. And his tom fills, like I love how he had everything flat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Everything was flat, all the cymbals, everything. I love that aesthetic of him. And he had baseball cap to the side that was like flat too, and he was just a machine. And I loved all of that, and that influence. That's how I set my drums up now. They're still like as flat as possible.
Yeah,
sit right above them. Yeah, good shit.
Yeah, dude. Part of his mystique back in the day, because now he's, you know, married to a Kardashian, and now he's very much, you know, what he sounds like, who he is in a lot of ways. But yeah, part of his mystique during that era was Mark and Thom, and then Travis was the guy that talked with his drums, but was a very quiet dude, and it worked so well.
Yeah, you're right. And he kind of came in after they'd like done some stuff, like they were a band to begin with, and he kind of like replaced someone. I think at the time, like the story was that this guy like went back to college or something, the original drummer, or like, and it was just like, you know, this other guy just kind of like helped out and like ended up becoming like one of the best drummers of all time. Like, and he was just such a sweet guy, and like his story growing up, and like just very, I admire him. I still admire him a lot. I think he's still obviously a legend.
Absolutely.
But the mystique, I gravitate towards that quite a bit. I noticed like in various, I love like artists that have a lot of mystique, and like, I mean, Aphex Twin, like we can get into it later, but the king of like no, I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, before we go on to number 3, I was going to say about this record, for me at least, if I could, this album taught me how a song live can have a totally different life to it. Because obviously he's still staying in the parameters of the song, but he's adding little Easter eggs throughout the songs. You're like, oh my God, he didn't do that in the record, but now it's like I want to listen to this version of the song for that thing he does.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
just
true.
an ever evolving thing. It's not just here's the song, let's go play it live. So
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, he's his own person. Like, he's his own artist. Like, I respect that a lot. Like, you know, I try to do that myself without going too off the wall because I don't want to put people off, like into my bandmates. But I have to do that. It's just part of what I do. Like, and it's my favorite thing is to improvise when I get the opportunity to. There's at the end of one of our tracks, Fitz Pleasure. At the moment, I improvise the very ending. I go to like halftime and like really slow it down, and I'm like trying to slow it down as much as possible, and just like go full into like sludgy kind of like just metal like kind of breakdown, and it works really well. It's fun.
that's the stand-up comedian in you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm put right in that moment. I'm performing and I'm looking out at the audience and I'm like, yes, like I did it.
Yeah. All right, number 3, the album is In Rainbows. The release year is 2007. The artist is Radiohead. The song choice is Reckoner, and the drummer is Philip Selway. Very powerful song.
Very, hugely influential on me. I think the first time I heard that, I think it was Radio 1, and I wasn't really paying attention as I used to listen to the radio on the way to university on the bus. And they played that, and the first time I heard it, I thought that's really nice. I want to listen to that properly. So I bought the album and I was laying in bed, and then this track came on, and like you said, the stereo, the mixing, like the reverb I hadn't heard anything like it before. The way that like there's a section in the song where Tom York's vocal moves to the back of your head, and I still have never heard anything like it. It just, the first time I heard it really, I felt like new pathways in my brain had just branched off, and I just got flooded with like serotonin, and it massages my brain, that part of the track. And from then I used to pretty much exclusively listen to like heavy music growing up. Like I was quite a snob about it. Like me and my friends were like the metal guys, and like everything else is shit, and like and then I heard this, and it was like, okay, well, that I was wrong, and I need to like listen to everything now, because it just completely opened up. And the drums, that rhythm, it's so hard to describe. Like it just makes so much sense. I mean, Radiohead are just phenomenal. Like the originality, creativity, authenticity. They're one of my favorite bands by far, and I think I'm always really amazed by what they do, like just the intelligence behind things. Yeah, and the percussion on this track was one big thing that influenced me. So, I mean, I remember this period was, I think it was 2000, was it 2007 this came out? It was first year of university, so that's when I met Joe, the singer, and I met Gus in the second year, but we started the band in the second year. And this album was like hugely influential for us as a band. Like we listened to it a lot, and this track in particular influenced my beat for Something Good on our first album. It's similar, but it influenced me to try to play in a different way and like use percussion more. And I use an egg shaker when we wrote it. I just used an egg shaker and a kick drum and a snare drum, and it's got that kind of like style to it. I think it's hard to describe, but it's very swingy and kind of fluid, and it's not so like rigid, and it just, I really wanted to try to play like that. And I think a lot of his playing is very it's so hard to describe, but it's purposeful, and it helps the track massively, but it's also like very unique and creative, and like I said earlier, like that simplicity, but also it backing up everything else. It's his own voice. Like that beat is a hook. Like
that is the song to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it changes now and again. Like halfway through, he seamlessly like kind of blends into a similar beat. And it just is beautiful. It just, the whole track just, it revolves around you, and you become like part of it. And it just, I don't quite know what he's saying, but I like to think I know what he's saying. And I make it up in my mind. And like I said, the mix is unbelievable, and it's very, very important to me. That whole album, like that track in particular, I can feel myself feeling better. Like I have goosebumps. He's such a smart drummer. Like he really is incredibly smart, and again, very mysterious. Like I don't know a great deal about him or like his approach to things, but I quite like that there are guys like that who are just like he's a, what would you call it? He's just like a work. I don't know. Like he just works at playing in a way that is like, he's not fancy about it. He's not a celebrity. Like he's not trying to like, his ego doesn't get in the way of it, and he's a true artist. Like all of those guys in that band are, and I respect that a lot. Yeah.
I don't want to say he's underrated, because I think if you mention his name to any drummer that is like gives a shit, they're like, oh no, he's, of course. But yeah, he is underrated in like the zeitgeist of music. He's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I know what you mean. Like I think there's a lot of like, there are drummers who are known and by like the general public, and you know, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people like Colin Greenwood, the bass player, is one of the best bass players I've heard. Like stuff that he does, like it just, that's why I love the band so much, is because it just, they're all so talented. It's insane that they all got together and they create the same thing together, because they're all so good. It really, I'm so grateful that they do what they do.
How do you feel? No, don't know how to word this. I guarantee Phil has listened and appreciated Alt J's music. Knowing that, how does that make you feel?
That's a very, I've never thought about that before, really. It has happened where I've had people who I respect a lot tell me that they respect me and they like what I do. And it's very hard to take, really. I don't really know what to do with it. It kind of, it means something. It means a lot. But it also, maybe there's like a defense mechanism that I have, where it's like, I don't want to see them in a different way. So I don't want them to be like normal and like just like me, and like I want them to be this mythical thing. And that's why I think, you know, there's certain people that I admire so much that if I was to meet, it might be a bit much, and I think it would slightly ruin it.
I know exactly what you mean.
But it's a nice thought. It's a nice thought to think that somebody like him has heard us and maybe appreciated it. It's quite a nice thing to like. It's a bonus in life, you know. There's a lot of bonuses that come with doing what I do, but it is a nice little thing to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to number 4. I could talk about Phil all day, but the album is We're New Here. The release year is 2011. The artist is Jamie XX. Song choice is Running, and the drummer, Jamie XX. So I'm not familiar with this project and or artist, so I'm excited.
Because I always feel like running, not away, because there's no such place. Because if there was, I would have found it by now. Because it's easier to run, easier than staying and finding out you're the only one who didn't run. Because running will be the way your life and mine will be described, as in the long run, or as in having given someone a run for his money, or as in running out of time. Because running makes me look like everyone else, so I hope there will never be cause for that. Because I will be running in the other direction, not running for cover.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a traditional drummer, you know, he doesn't, as far as I'm aware. Actually, no, he does play percussion on stage, I think. But he's a member of the XX. Have you heard of the XX?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so he produces, I think he's the main producer of the band. And he does, you know, all the drums and that kind of thing. And he has his own stuff, which is this, like, so I think the audio is taken from Gil Scott Heron. Like there was like archives of him like reading poetry or something, and he put it to music and made a whole album out of it. Yeah, I mean, this beat, it's just so cool. Like it just feels good. You know, there's something quite, I think, primal about it. The groove, like you can't help but just like move to it, which is really powerful. The way that the drums are, like the way they sound, like each kick like has like an almost different sound to it. There's like air at the end of it. I don't know how he's done it. Like if it's a mix of different things, or I love the sound of that like air. And the simple hi-hat. It's really, really cool. It influenced me a lot. I mean, so much so that the track on our first album, Blood Flood, it's just that beat. I've just copied that beat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the beginning, there's like an intro. It's a doon 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 goon cat. That's just it. So like I wonder if he knows that. I don't know. I wonder if he's heard it before and been like, wait. It's one of my favorites to play live, this track. It varies a lot. Exact beat.
Do you remember what that backbeat was?
What you mean? How do I play it?
Yeah. What's so sonically? What's that sound? Because it sounds like a trash can with stuff on top, plus a snare, plus it flammed.
I don't remember. Yeah, I mean, I remember using a lot of very old drums. Like we had a very old Ludwig kit, but I don't remember specifically. No.
Is that Thomas snare on that record for the most part?
Yeah.
Yeah. My God.
Yeah. I'm proud of it. I love playing that live. Like, it just, because it varies so much, that track, and there's some really nice grooves to it. And when the main like beat comes in, the audience, like, you can see them all just nodding their head at the same time, and I love that.
All right, number 5, the album is Zero. Release year is 2013. The artist is Aphex Twin. The song choice is Product 29 in Bars 101. And the drummer is a bunch of buttons. It's Aphex Twin.
Yeah, this album I'm obsessed with it right now. I've been listening to it a lot on tour. It's a really nice album, nice like headphones that have got a lot of low end in them. It feels physically really nice. And our monitor engineer, Benny, he'd not really listened to Aphex Twin that much. And I kind of was like, just on this flight, you should just listen to this album. And I think he was kind of blown away by it because of, I mean, he's more of an engineer, that kind of like mind. And he's really fascinated with the production, and like he said that the reverb is really interesting. And since he said that, I've been trying to kind of focus in on it. But he's right. The reverb kind of is really, really important on this whole album. So yeah, I think sonically it's so interesting to listen to. You can't predict where it's going. It sounds very fun and experimental, but there's a lot of like consistencies throughout the album too. Like it makes a lot of sense. I think that's one thing that puts a lot of people off an artist like Aphex Twin, is that it's to a lot of people it might sound a bit chaotic and a little bit much. And I think once you like let go and you let it wash over you a bit, for me it's a really profound experience. And I really love getting lost in it. Like visually, if you like listen to an album like this and you close your eyes, it just stimulates so much visual. And the way, like you said, like the kick drum has so much character, the snare has so much character, the way that the hi-hats kind of just do their own thing, and you can't quite tell where they're going. I often listen to music when, if I have time, I like to just lay down and close my eyes and just listen to music. And if I'm lucky, you can kind of get into this like in between awake sleep state. And you kind of like, I have immense clarity in that state of mind on all kinds of things. And sometimes like things will come to my mind, and because I'm like awake enough to like have like real perspective on it, I have the kind of like nonsense of the dream, but I have the reality to kind of like process it.
That's interesting. I love that.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a word for that state of mind, but I was listening to this album and I had just this immense feeling like I was understood. It was a weird sensation of feeling like this music is speaking to me and I'm being heard. And it was just quite an abstract feeling, but it just made a lot of sense. And it's quite, yeah. And I think, as a drummer, it's hugely influential in a way that it just encourages me just to do what I want to do and like do what feels good. Because I don't, like I said earlier, I don't know a great deal about Aphex Twin. I don't know his process at all.
I don't think anyone does.
No, and that's the beauty of it. But Benny and I, like, we've talked about it a little bit, and I wonder, like with this album, for instance, like, he uses a lot of the same instruments, and sonically it's consistent. And I wonder if he just made this like wall of sound and he chopped it up and put it into tracks. I don't really know, but one thing that I take from Aphex Twin is just that be like, just speak to people in a way that you are being yourself, and like authenticity is so important in creativity and the art that you make, because that's what people relate to. I think, you know, people deep down, like what I really love about art, music, like whatever medium it is the fact that somebody has decided that they are sending me a message and they want to be heard as a human being. And this is what, I mean, that's what Aphex Twin gives to me, is just this otherworldly, like very, very creative, smart, authentic person that I get to experience a little bit of his mind through this music. And I try to play like in a way that comes from that. Just do what feels good. Like it's very, very hard sometimes to play. Like I think as people get older, like just to play around and like do what feels good. It's difficult. Playing drums, it's very easy to just do what feels comfortable, or like do what you think is expected. And I constantly try to remind myself that the only way you're going to get something truly unique and original is if you take risks. And I try to do that. And I'm very, very fortunate that I get to, you know, that I'm in a position where that's what I need to do. Like, I think my bandmates are encouraging, and we encourage each other in that way. It's just like, if you want to do that, then just do it. And I guarantee that it will sound good, because you're just being yourself. And because if you're contrived and you're trying to impress people, and you're trying to do things that you think people want to hear, then people can hear that. It's the same in all kinds of like painting, whatever. It's like acting. Like I really love watching actors, and you can tell when an actor is being themselves. And you know, nobody wants to see somebody pretending to be sad. You want to see somebody like really experiencing an emotion, because the mirror neurons in your brain experience what they're experiencing, and if there's a wall between that, it doesn't work. So yeah, I think Aphex Twin influences me in that way endlessly. There's so much music as well. Like he's got so many different projects. He's got so many different names, and he's is like a trove of like, oh, I never even knew that he made that. But yeah, but this album feels very contemporary as well. It's his older stuff sonically is a little bit, there's less kind of depth to it for me anyway. Mm-hmm. And I really like this album just because of there's a lot of depth, good bass, like good just all around, really.
Well, I think that's a great place to bookend the conversation. And I will end with, I think you especially, but all your bandmates and all, Jay, I think you guys have reached that level of authenticity. I mean, you are a very singular player. I never know where you're going to take a song, and no one sounds like you, man. So you've done it.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will let you go, man. I know you're hours ahead of me in time zones, so I'll let you have a nice, relaxing night. But Thom, honestly, dude, thank you so much for doing this. It was really fun, dude. A lot of great insight. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. This is an absolute pleasure. Like I love doing this kind of thing, and it's a great podcast. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a great thing to do. So thank you.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you soon, dude. Be well and have a good rest of the night, man.
Nice. Thank you.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!